Gordon Darcy, 82 tests for Ireland. Thanks so much, Gordon. Really appreciate you joining us again, mate.
Yeah, good to be back, Martin. Thanks.
Well, a week from now, it's going to be the big build-up to the quarterfinal. But for your side, it's effectively a round of 16 game you've got this weekend. Really, really tough game.
Yeah. I suppose probably should go by Razzie's Magic 8 Ball for this week's Razzie Rasmus's throwing his pot shots in for this week's this week's match. Trying to get ahead of the mind games, isn't he? So it is like it's fallen quite well for Ireland in the build up, like best laid plans and all that. But the first 3 matches went according to plan. You get that week to draw the line in the sand, and then you got 4 games, 4 knockouts, in control of your destiny right the way through. So it's a good place for these guys.
Yeah. So a lot of questions have been asked about what teams are capable of winning back-to-back-to-back games, quarters, semis, final in 15 days. You guys add another back to that because you've got 4 knockout matches effectively.
Yeah, and you go back to 2015 and Ireland in good shape, similar going into the last match. You lose 6 players in that we couldn't afford to lose. In that match against France in the last pool stage, and we go out against Argentina. So injuries haven't played a part at this stage. They inevitably will for every team, everybody that's in sort of contention for that. So I think you just you've got to ride your luck as far as you can. 4 knockout games isn't ideal, but I think one of the things is you can't worry about problems that don't exist yet.
Good call.
At the moment, squad is reasonably healthy. It's very healthy. Sexton is fit and raring to go. We don't know the team yet, but they might use a bit of the squad. They might not. But yeah, I think Andy Farr has been incredibly consistent in his tenure, where he just goes, he's there doesn't plan for different scenarios that might come down 2-3 weeks. He plays the team he's playing week in, week out. So I got to say, I like it, and the players like it as well.
It's one of the arguments we've been wrestling with here in New Zealand about what we call the rest and rotation, and not playing our best 23 in matches. We saw it against Italy. We've got Uruguay now, and do the players need less rugby, or do they need to be playing? In your experience, what would you prefer as a player?
Do you guys know what your best 23 is?
Well, that is Gordon. That is a really good question and a really huge problem for us, because no, we don't. And Justin Marshall yesterday telling us as well that the players want to play. You've got to have cohesion. You've got to get combinations, and you can train as much as you like, and you can tell me this, but training isn't playing, is it?
Nah, myself and Brian towards the end of our careers. Well, not the end of our careers. When we were fine, probably at the peak of our thing, we were, looking at young lads in the gym, and they'd be out bench pressing me definitely, and probably Brian not a million miles maybe off them as well. But we always used to kind of laugh and kind of go like we were going in, enjoy the lift or whatever, but we're just like, game's not won in the gym. They're won out in the pitch. And that was always a kind of something that I kind of would have, I suppose, almost coming from the semi-amateur era into it. Like, you've got to be on the pitch, you've got to have your touch, you've got to have your feel for a game. If you don't have that, you can have all the stats and you can be well rested and everything, but if you've got feet for hands, it doesn't really make a difference, does it?
You playing Scotland, you play each other a lot in the Six Nations, of course. You've got hundreds, if not thousands of years of history between the two countries. Why? You just explain to us, why are these matches so... other teams grow a leg. Every team seems... It doesn't matter where you are in the Six Nations. When your countries play, Ireland, Scotland, Wales play Scotland, Wales play England, it's just a different contest.
Yeah, there's lots of little... rivalries between each of the countries, and obviously Ireland-England doesn't need much explanation.
No,
actually, to be fair, it's usually England versus everybody. Much explanation.
Yes,
but Ireland built up a massive rivalry with Wales down through the years. And then Scotland, I think in the last couple of years now, there's been, I don't know, I wouldn't say there's animosity in there, but there has been, I don't know, something going on between them, and there seems to be an extra little bit of bite in the matches. I think Scotland have probably underachieved given the I suppose the team, their players they've had, well, they would feel they've underachieved, and I think maybe that resonates with the Scottish, with the Irish lads, and they like to go hard at them. But yeah, the Six Nations thing, there's always, that's one of the great things about the tournament. There's six teams in it, and there's always a guaranteed bit of spice between the teams, and it carries through into the World Cups as well, which is good.
Okay, let's go back again to your pool matches, and one of the, I don't know whether it's a problem for the All Blacks, but it's been a hard group to focus on, because after France, we've played a year ago on the weekend, another three matches which we're expected to win, and we're expected to win handsomely. And are those preparation for a physical must-win knockout match in a quarter-final? You played Tonga, you get a good physical match against them. And now you've got Scotland sandwiched in between all of that, South Africa. Talk us through that game, Gordon, because that was a real statement performance. I watched that game. I was mesmerised by it. That, to me, was Test rugby as good as it gets.
Yeah, so and again, there was no yellow cards, there was no red cards, there was nothing really in it to sway one team either which way. So an absolute beast of a test match. You're absolutely right, and it was lovely to watch. You couldn't take your eyes off it. It was so tense going either way. Like Jesse Creel, two incredible tackles to keep Ireland out, which would have, you thought they were going to get tackles. James Lowe, so there was probably three scoring opportunities for each team. They both took one, and the defense was only probably matched by the quality of the attack. It was incredible to watch, and yeah, I suppose you kind of looking at it now, going, Ireland kind of won despite their line out functioning. So scrum was messy, and you could say South Africa had a fair hand up in that. But Ireland won with losing, I think, 5 of their first 7 lineouts, and that's our primary possession. So Ireland found a way to win with one hand time behind the back. And when we won the Grand Slam in 2009, Gert Small was the forwards coach, and he always talked about that. He was there, no matter what happens on a pitch, great teams find a way to win, or in other words, they find a way not to lose. And I think that's really that was really evident from the Irish team. They were just there. They were finding ways to win on the pitch, which is exactly what you want from your players.
Gordon Darcy with us, 82 Test matches for Ireland. Also represented the British and Irish Lions 2005, 2009. The continuous question being asked, and I don't mean to be disrespectful by bringing this up, but it is lingering about whether or not Ireland can do something that you've never been able to do, which is get past a quarter-final. Every other box has been ticked, Gordon. Beating South Africa the last 2 times. I think you've won 3 out of the last 4, if not 4 out of the last 5 against New Zealand, coming down here and winning, cleaning out the Six Nations. I watched every game of that, and I love the way your team plays rugby. And I think that a lot of All Black fans here, dare I say it out loud, look, if any other team was going to win this other than us, there's so much. You can't be a Patrick Devlin here on this side of the microphone without having some Irish in you as well, mate. But how big a deal is that, or are we just making a big deal about it?
No, it is a big deal. It's unprecedented level of success outside of the World Cup. I've been because I've been involved in the system for a long time. I've always kind of just you celebrate success when it comes to it. We're not a country that can ever plan for 2 years and sacrifice results to try and achieve something in a World Cup. I talked about 2015 when we had a pretty good run to a semi-final, and injuries took us at the knees, and history could easily repeat itself this week, next week, and Ireland could do nothing wrong and still not get through that quarter-final stage. So I've always been a believer in you celebrate success when it's there, and I think we're the only 5th team to win a series in New Zealand. So when you think about levels of challenge, this team is up there. If we don't get through this, I still look at this and go, this is still the number 1 team in the world, and still, one of the best teams, probably to play, one of the best Irish teams ever to play the game. Now, as I say, we're talking about this quarter final. New Zealand aren't, it's not their best vintage, and you'd never apologise for that, because I've played plenty of times against New Zealand when they have been their best vintage, and that's pretty hard to play in those games of being so close so many times. So next week's match, we get through this week match first, but next week, there isn't much in it from here on out, and that's the reality of it. As the margins narrow, um, the teams are going. Some team is going to lose by the bounce of a ball at some stage in the next 4 weeks.
Do you care? Do you worry about? Do you mind about style? We get a bit obsessed in this country, thinking that we've got to teach the world how to play rugby, or spread the ball wide, or play attractive, or score tries, or all of that kind of stuff. And I'll go back to that South African test, where to me it didn't matter whether a try was scored. It was just the attrition and the brutality and just the sheer intensity and actual commitment of the players. You guys don't worry about that silly stuff, do you?
Nah, I think it's at some stages. I think under when Joe Schmidt was coach, I think there was a bit of criticism saying, "Oh, it wasn't attractive rugby." And I just remember banging my head off and just going, "Are you serious? We're winning games consistently, and lads are giving out about how it looks on the pitch." No, like there is a case for you play a game that you're built for. Ireland don't want to be playing that type of game against South Africa too often. So that is, you want to be saving that for your World Cup final or your biggest match in the round, because we're not built for that. We're built for speed. We're built for pace, letting the ball do the work. With Sexton, Gibson Park, James Lowe, Hansen, these guys like to keep the ball alive. We can go toe to toe with bigger teams, but that's not playing to our strength. And that's an area we just happen to be lucky at the moment that the way Ireland are playing, it's very, very nice to look at, but that is very much secondary. It is about playing to their strengths, and I think that's something that Ireland will look to double down on. But they can only do that if they get their line out sorted out.
We're all looking at that quarter final as well, Gordon, and I'm thinking ahead and talking ahead here again, and thinking get through the quarter final, and wow, the final's right there, because the other side of the draw, thanks to World Rugby, who did the draw back in 2007. I mean, all the best teams are on our side of the draw. So, looking at the four teams, the French, South Africa, New Zealand, and Ireland, would you agree that these four teams, even with what we've seen, are easily the best four teams in the world right now?
Yeah, I think so. And it's a bit hard to, be too judgmental on it, because obviously we're not playing on the other side of the draw, and that'll all come out in the semis. But one of the positive things, one of the things is the reality of it is, if you're not good enough to win a quarter final, you're not good enough to win a final. So you're going to have to beat France, you're going to have to beat New Zealand at some stage. Yeah, the pure, people saying, "Oh, it wouldn't be great for that to be the final." But if that's not the way rugby works, not the way sport works. You've got to beat them at some stage. And if you're not good enough to beat New Zealand, if New Zealand aren't good enough to beat us in a quarter final, or Scotland in a quarter final, they're not good enough to. They clearly don't deserve their place in it. One of the plus sides of this has been Fiji, and they now have a chance of getting to a semi-final. And I think that is brilliant for rugby, and they've been the people's team for, geez, I don't know, for every time put themselves onto the pitch. So I think there are silver linings to it as well.
Yeah, good call actually. I mean, when they won the gold medals at the Olympics, we're delighted down this part of the world, of course, and at some stage, it's a bit like Morocco making the semi-finals of last year's Football World Cup, isn't it? Being the first African country to do that. At some stage, a Pacific Island country, you've got to hope that they break out and at least get to that stage.
Yeah, I think so. Like if they get to a semi-final, you kind of feel that the set piece is the bit that might slow them down at that stage, but they've such brilliant individual players that they could do something and shock everybody. But I think them getting into a semi-final, that kind of starts to, yeah, I think that'd be a brilliant thing for rugby if they can push and keep going and keep that momentum and get into a semi-final.
Roy, thank you so much again for being so generous with your time, mate. It's always great talking to you. All right, let's call it now then. Ireland going all the way.
Go all the way. Good God, nothing like a bit of dramatic extremes.
Go
on. Like going all the way. I think Ireland are like, and I did like this week is a massive week. So Ireland, the next 2 weeks, I think this 2 weeks, Ireland to beat Scotland, and then like happy to come on next week and we can have a chat about it again next week.
Okay.
And we can see who wins against New Zealand. But my sense is Ireland are going to break their quarterfinal duck.